Would you like to accelerate your career and reach your full potential in just minutes a day? Welcome to the LEADx Show with New York Times best-selling author and Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Kevin Kruse.
What are the 7 triggers for capturing attention? Hello everyone, Kevin Kruse here, helping you to achieve your full potential 5 days a week. And in just a minute, we're going to talk about the science of capturing attention. But first, don't forget to visit LEADx.org, where you'll find hundreds of articles from dozens of the best business writers out there. And sign up for our quick read newsletter. It's packed with actionable tips you can try out right away. That's LEADx.org. Our guest today is an award-winning journalist, speaker, investor, and entrepreneur. He was named to Forbes 30 Under 30 list of high achievers. He is the co-founder and CMO of Octane AI, which is the easiest way to create a chatbot and engage your audience via instant messaging. His best-selling book is Captivology, The Science of Capturing People's Attention. Our guest, of course, is Ben Parr. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about Captivology in just a minute. But first, can you share with our listeners a time when you failed, maybe even earlier in your career? What did you learn from it?
Which of the hundreds of thousands of times would you like me to pick from? I mean, look, I'll talk about a broader one. I'm doing a company now, Octane AI, which is the platform for building an audience on Messenger and through a bot. And most people think of it as like, my first true startup. Mashable, I was not the founder of, but I was, their first co-editor. And, CNET's a big company that I used to work at. And even my venture fund is not quite the same as a startup. But what people don't know is I did have another startup before that had a little bit of venture money. It was called the Peep Project. And it failed, and I learned a lot from it. And it failed mostly because I realized that it had evolved into something that I was not super passionate about, and my co-founder was not super passionate about. And so startups die for a lot of reasons, but I think it died for the right reason, which is we weren't super passionate about the project. We were focused more on becoming entrepreneurs and being entrepreneurial than actually solving a legitimate problem and doing it because this problem existed. And so I learned that if I'm doing a startup, you have to have your full energy, not just for that, but for anything you really do. And you have to have real passion for it and real passion for the people and ideas and the people you're going to serve. And I just didn't have that with the last company. And I'm very glad I went through that experience because it helped me figure out what to do with this one.
That's great, Ben. And I like that you opened it up too. Whether you're an entrepreneur and it's the company, whether it's your career, who are your customers, whether you're an author writing a book, you really need that passion for your audience. So Ben, your book is Captivology, The Science of Capturing People's Attention. And LEADx listeners, I just want to say that if you're saying, this is all about me, I don't want all the attention. It's not that kind of book. You've got it wrong. In fact, Ben points out that the masters of attention, the true masters like a Bill Gates or an Adele or a Sheryl Sandberg, they're not showing up in tabloids and unintentional places because they don't want the limelight for themselves. They know how to capture attention for their projects, for their causes. So with that, sort of disclaimer, Ben, you say there's 3 types of attention. So what are the 3 types and why is that important to understand?
All right. So there are 3 stages of attention. And so you have to think of attention as a gradual process. It's like a bonfire. You don't start with a bonfire. You start with a spark or an ignition, and then you grow into the kindling, and then you build up the fire to that big bonfire. So it's 3 stages. Same thing with attention. First stage is immediate attention. It is our subconscious automatic response to certain sounds and stimuli. It's if you duck automatically when you hear a gunshot or you turn away when you have a bad smell. It's designed to protect us. It's controlled by a system called sensory memory. And so there's a lot of things you can actually do with that at a subconscious level people don't know about. The second stage of attention is something called short attention. And that is our short-term conscious attention when we switch to paying attention to a TV show, a speech, a book, a podcast. And it's controlled by a system called working memory. And that is the short-term attention and memory process that helps us decide which information to pay attention to, but more importantly, which information gets stored into long-term memory. And one key note about attention is that attention and memory are intrinsically linked. If somebody does not remember what you said, they did not pay attention. And so your goal is to create memory. The last stage is long attention. And long attention is that long-term kind of interest that somebody has. I like to say it's the difference between trying to like sell your product everywhere as a startup and being Apple, where everybody just lines up when you announce a product because you've built so much loyalty and you've built up such an audience and you've built up such a reputation. That's long attention. That's long-term interest, long-term memory. That's what you want to get to. So you go through the stages to reach that.
Love it. And I like that analogy. You know, everybody wants to get to that long-term, that roaring bonfire, but we all need to start with that spark, with capturing that immediate attention. So your research indicates that no matter what, whether it's the pop stars or the video games or these, you know, viral news stories, they all are using sort of common, or what they have in common are these captivation triggers. And unfortunately, we don't have time to go deep into any of them, but can you summarize or touch on what the captivation triggers are?
Does everybody have their pens? No. There's a book that actually goes deep into this. It's called Captivology. You're welcome to get it if you're interested. But the 7 triggers are as follows, and I'll give you very short descriptions of each. They are automaticity, framing, disruption, reward, reputation, mystery, and acknowledgement. And they kind of go in the order of immediate to long-term attention. Automaticity is capturing attention with automatic sensations. It's like how a brighter color captivates our attention more often than a darker color at a subconscious level. But also that we see red as a color of love, and thus we'll look at somebody more often if they're wearing red than other colors. There's a lot of interesting science to this. Framing is the fact that we pay attention to things that fall within our frame of reference and tend to ignore things that fall outside of it. Politics is a perfect example. If you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, you will pay attention to certain things and ignore others purely on the basis of that. Disruption is the fact that we pay attention to things that violate our expectations of the world. And so if a clown comes into the middle of your office, you're going to pay attention because that violates what you expect the world to be like. Reward, which is the fact that we pay attention to things that provide us with short-term and long-term rewards, whether that is food and money and sex, to validation and self-healing and all of these other like longer-term things like having a purpose in your career. The reputation trigger is the fact that we pay attention to reputable sources of information, most specifically experts, and the power experts have on our attention. Mystery is the fact that we pay attention to mysteries and stories that are incomplete, and there's a whole ton of amazing science around why mysteries captivate our attention and how to build a great mystery. And then the final trigger, acknowledgement, it's the fact that we pay attention to people and things that validate us and provide us with empathy and understanding. And so it's that kind of difference where if somebody you care about or even a brand you care about provides you with validation, it could be your boss, it could be an employee, it could be your wife or your husband, that builds the deepest kind of attention.
Let me ask, I know we're not going to go deep into these, but I'm curious about a couple of things. So the persuasion and influence research out there, you know, as you said, nothing happens until there's attention. And so attention is a big variable in persuasion and in influence. Some would say that it's like the biggest variable. Like it's almost impossible not to be persuaded if someone just keeps your attention on them or their issue or their product. Would you agree with that, or how do you see it?
For the most part. So I like to say attention is the currency of the modern economy. There is nothing you can do if you don't have somebody's attention. Like nothing can be accomplished. Attention is at the very minimum the baseline for everything that you do. If you don't have the attention of students, they can't learn. If you don't have the attention of customers, they don't buy. Now, in general, if you have their attention, you have more ability to persuade. But one thing that people sometimes do and don't realize is that attention by any means does not necessarily lead to conversions, like shock jocks or shocking the world. This is the disruption trigger. You can walk into an office wearing nothing but a Speedo for your job interview, and you're going to get attention, but you're not going to get the job because you did not have a disruption that aligned with the values that you wanted the other person to be persuaded by. You want to have a way of capturing their attention, but still be professional. As an example, if you're trying to capture their attention during an interview. And so just trying to capture attention, period, doesn't always work. It has to be tactically correct.
Okay, so let me also ask, and this isn't one I've prepped you on, but as we both are journalists or writers, and it seems like even rookie writers, we all have to fight for this attention online with online media. And it seems like everybody's using the same things. Like every article is a listicle. Every other article uses the word secret or strange or unusual, curiosity buttons. Like everybody's trying to write that headline to get the click. And I feel like even those techniques are probably diluting because everybody's doing them. Again, do you see it the same way? And like, what's a young writer to do to break through in this kind of noisy world?
So it's absolutely becoming more and more of that. And I feel like don't focus too much on the short term of like, do I get a ton of clicks with this immediate article? The big question, how do you become an expert in your area? And so the best writers consistently make content, whether it gets 1 million clicks or 7 clicks. And they put it out consistently in their key area. And they get known for their expertise, and they get called for their expertise, and they get book deals, and they get consulting deals, and they get new jobs. Build your expertise. Pick an area that you really want to dive into deeper, that you really enjoy, that you really care about, that you think could be marketable to, and just make a lot of really compelling content and just write interesting things. You'll learn sometimes that some headlines work better than others, but really in the end, it's how compelling is your content and how much does that align with your goal of building up to expertise? Again, reputation trigger. We pay attention to experts and pay deference to experts. How do you get to that level?
Love that. No shortcuts to excellence like that. And the consistency is key in picking your niche. So let's do one last example. Joe or Jane, office worker, mid-career professional in an office. What should he or she be doing to build their brand? How could they use one or more of these triggers to sort of get ahead career-wise?
So I actually wrote about this when I first came out with the book in the Harvard Business Review. So there's a couple of things you have to think about, and it really kind of depends. You have to understand who you're trying to get the attention of. Are you trying to get the attention of your industry? Are you trying to get the attention of your teammates and employees? Are you trying to get the attention of your customers? Those are different groups, and you have to understand who you're trying to capture the attention of. Now, again, we've already covered one of them, which is building up expertise. Helps you capture attention across all the groups. If you are considered the expert in a key area, you become far more valuable in your career, and your value to other companies increases exponentially. And it's harder for a company to fire you when you're the expert. The second thing I would say is you got to really find a way to reward people, whether it's your audience or your teammates. And using the reward trigger, you can understand the dynamics of both what I call immediate or short-term rewards like bonuses and more visceral things, and intrinsic style rewards, which are things like being able to provide a purpose to your team or provide a sense of satisfaction to your audience for growing up with you and feeling like they have some kind of ownership in your success. These are probably some of those key things. And then I would also say the acknowledgement trigger and building that deeper relationship with, it again depends on, are you trying to get the attention of your bosses or your audience,
But validating them, whoever you're trying to advance with, that validation is going to be a big trigger.
Absolutely. And if your boss feels like they are if they're mentoring you and they feel like they have an even more vested interest, they're going to have a vested interest in making sure your career goes. On the other hand, if you become an expert to the general public, you also become an invaluable asset. There are a couple different ways to reach this professional level. You just got to know who your audience is.
Love it. So Ben, before we wrap up, I always like to challenge our listeners to get at least 1% better every single day. Is there something you could challenge us to do today?
I'm going to give you 2 challenges. Challenge number 1 is I'm an Eagle Scout, and so I always do this, which is do a good turn daily. Do one nice thing for one person that you do not know at one random time. and think about that daily. You will make the world 1% better every single day. The second one is I challenge you to listen to some kind of new piece of information every day. It could be an audiobook. It could be 60db.com, where they have a bunch of great informational content. It could be anything. Anchor. It could be NPR. But listen to something that will educate you. It could be a YouTube video. Learn something new every day from one of those content channels. Decrease the amount of time you're spending watching filler content and increase the amount of content that educates you on something you don't know.
Brilliant. We got a bonus challenge today, listeners. I like that. So Ben, what's the best way our listeners can find out more about you and your company?
So let's do company first. OctaneAI.com, OCTANEAI.com. A place to build an audience on Messenger like you would an email list. Build an audience through a bot, be able to activate that audience, and create content for bots. You can also find it at Octane AI on every social network. If you want to find me, it's at Ben Parr, BenParr, on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, pretty much every social network. Captivology, CAPTAVOLOGY. You can find the book, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, every major bookstore. Just search it and you will be able to find it, or Captivology.com. And that's a lot of plugs, but there's a lot of places to find me.
Well, that's easy. We'll hook them up in the show notes. All right, friends, you've just been mentored by the legendary Ben Parr. And don't forget, as we said, lots of plugs there, but all of those links from this interview are going to be over at leadx.org. And you can get Ben's book, Captivology, at Amazon.com, any of your favorite bookstores. And listeners, if you got even one new idea today, do me a solid, hop on over to iTunes and just leave a short, honest review for this show. It would mean the world to me. And until the next time, remember, leadership is about influence, not authority. So leadership really isn't a choice. We influence people when we speak up, but we also influence people when we stay silent. Influence those around you one way or another. So you're a leader whether you want to be or not. The question is, what kind of leader will you be?